Christ came the first time, he is, according to Scripture, the Messiah who came first. But he did not come at all according to Jewish expectations. The Jewish community wanted a deliverer from Roman power. They wanted, classically, a Messiah who would come and make Israel the new world power to set Israel up as the arbiter in affairs around the ancient Near Eastern world, and to snuff out all of God's enemies, which would be all apostates, all Gentiles, you name it. The Jesus of the Gospels is not that Messiah, first of all. Never was and never will be. And so to understand the second coming of Christ, there's a need to understand historically that expectation which was thwarted. So again, we're put in this context of crisis, because the expectations of people in the first century were stymied. They were put at bay, and they were cast aside when Christ did the single act that no Messiah would ever do, and that would be to mount the Roman torture stake and die. Therefore, the second coming of Christ, in my opinion, must also be understood in this context of crisis, that whatever we may think of it and whatever our expectations are about it, there will probably be thwarted by a God that seems to deliciously meddle with human expectations and give to us that which we are not expecting, and therein delivering us and saving us. The Christian church in the first century, when it was born, it began as a Jewish sect, and before it became distinctively a religion of its own and a Christian faith, had all of those high expectations and those apocalyptic longings. And in the intervening centuries, as the church was born, they certainly held to a literal rendering of that apocalyptic understanding or reading or interpretation of the New Testament, that Christ would indeed physically return someday, at some unknown hour, at some unexpected moment. And I embrace that basically because I have nowhere else to go, and I think the wisdom of 2,000 years is nothing to trifle with. And so personally, I embrace the creeds, the ancient creeds of the church that declare that Christ has come and Christ will come again. I think it's obvious that in the late 20th century, once again we are thwarted, and it is open to interpretation exactly what that means.
The temple in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount will be rebuilt, because the abomination that causes desolation, which was prophesied by Daniel the prophet in the Old Testament, the temple has to exist in Israel for it to be desecrated by the Antichrist. We believe, as evangelical Christians, that at some point in the future, Israel will get to rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. When this happens, this will be another sign of the consummation of the ages, where the Antichrist will come and desecrate the temple. What I anticipate is at some point in the future, I believe that the Arabs will offer to share the Temple Mount with the Jews in order to, as a demonstration of goodwill, and to show the world that Arabs and Jews can indeed live in peace. When this happens, Israel, who already has formulated all the plans for the rebuilding of the temple, they will quickly then rebuild the temple, and we will have a mosque and the temple in Jerusalem functioning side by side on top of the Temple Mount. And I believe that at that point, the stage will be right for the Antichrist, the world leader who will bring about a period of false peace in the midst of global turbulence, to then begin to ascend power and assert himself in world politics.